WEAF New York.
Is there any way to accurately assess a century's worth of content? If you were to attempt to read 100 years worth of literature, I think the sheer amount of material available would stop you before you even got to pick up a novel. We, unlike previous generations, have the ability to easily look back and examine a decent portion of the visual media that came before us, allowing us to be a bit more subjective than critics of the past. While the radio network's inception was indeed in 1926, NBC's foray into television would be an ongoing process, taking another 20 years as broadcasting infrastructure and local stations began to take shape across the nation. Airing April 30th, 1949, the 10th anniversary of WNBC, then WNBT, was shown as a special presentation hosted and narrated by Ben Grar, NBC's first radio personality, and the man who would later speak the famous words, "The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC." The special shows footage of the New York's World's Fair, wartime broadcasts, and other pre-war milestone television moments in NBC radio. But it is difficult to tell when watching due to the video's age. For those who just enjoy watching early television, I would try and watch it.
Important part of the entertainment and information scheme would be television. There goes one of those little go-buggies familiar at the television scene to those people at the World's Fair who couldn't get one, had to walk and have World's Fair feet, as this poor lad seemed to have. Another one of the exhibits at the World's Fair, radio equipment installed in a seagoing yacht. This was a very important occasion when RCA NBC television presented its first regularly scheduled program. It wasn't seen by a vast number of people, in fact a very, very small number. Our station's call letters were W2XBS, X for experimental, and the signals emanated from that tower of the Empire State Building, which you see being dedicated in these films, NBC's first television transmitter, way up above the 102nd floor level of the Empire State Building, the highest point then and now in the New York City landscape.
Airing November 30th, 1966, NBC's 40th anniversary special is a much more pleasant viewing experience than a previous anniversary. Chet Huntley, co-anchor of the popular news show Huntley-Brinkley Report, hosts and narrates. Many television stars of the time make appearances, such as Bob Hope, Rudy Vallee, and Groucho Marx. However, when watching, it is obvious to tell that NBC did not save footage from the previous decade. Things that one would expect to see, like the first few years of Jack Paar, is absent from the special, possibly due to the fact that networks at the time frequently reused television tape or destroyed it after broadcast.
Good evening. I'm Chet Huntley. For the next hour, we're going to take a nostalgic look at and listen to some of the highlights of NBC's service to America over the past 40 years. For those of you who are over 40, much of our program will bring back pleasant memories. For those of you under 40, well, this is your chance to see and to hear some of the great stars and shows that amused, entertained, and informed Mom and Dad when they were under 40. And what a fantastic 40 years this has been. We've experienced the worst depression in our history, the most costly war in history. We've witnessed the birth of the atomic age, the electronic age, the phenomenal growth of the automobile age, and the age of aviation. And we've watched in wonder the birth of the space age. We've seen the beginnings of possibly the most serious threat of all to the survival of the race, the population explosion, and an equally threatening problem, the pollution of the air we breathe and the water we drink. Yet we've also seen the lifespan of a normal human being increased by more than 15 years. We've had the world communist movement, the civil rights movement, the one world movement, the freedom of the sexes movement, the free speech movement, and at peak traffic hours on our freeways and expressways, almost no movement at all.
While the world makes the inevitable shift toward streaming, I can argue that American television might be the most influential visual media art form of the second half of the 20th century. We can look at specific shows, networks, or even programming blocks, but the cohesion and unified brand identity is where its true influence lies. From 1950s suburban sitcoms to Saturday morning cartoons, it is rare to find a person over 25 who did not grow up watching television. And while the television set may no longer sit at the center of the living room, its cultural legacy has and will continue to define America's collective memory.
See it. For the memory.
This is the Red Network or the Blue Network of the National Broadcasting Company.
From Hollywood, the Jimmy Durante Show. Grab yourself a fucking Bronco and yes, go! The Lucky Strike program starring Jack Benny.
Today, the National Broadcasting Company will begin the first television program service in the history of our country.